Hey, you want to learn how to do unified home studies in FSFN? Well, come follow me. Hi everyone, today we're going to be doing unified home studies in FSFN. So the first thing that we need to do is to gather the information for the prospective caregiver, their basic demographic information, their name with the correct spelling, their date of birth, their social security number, and their address so that we can give that information to our data staff. The data staff is actually going to be the ones that are going to create the provider in FSFN for you. So once you've been notified by the data staff that the provider has been created in FSFN, then you can create your actual home study. So what I'm going to show you now is on my FSFN desktop. Once I have the provider created in FSFN for me, I'm going to go scroll down to where it actually says providers, and you'll see this little expando or little triangle. I'm going to click directly on it. And I had told the data staff that there was a prospective caregiver named Joey Bag of Donuts that was interested in having his non-relatives or relatives being placed in his home. So we can see here that Joey Bag of Donuts shows up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click directly on Mr. Bag of Donuts hyperlink. So I'm going to click directly on this so that I can begin the process of creating the home study and actually also linking the case to this home study. So now on this screen that FSFN generates to you as a case manager or a child advocate, the only thing that you're really interested in this screen to create a home study is all the way on your right hand side underneath actions. We're going to see that it says Unified Home Study. So I'm going to click directly on that hyperlink, and then the new screen shows up. So now on this screen, what I'm going to do is if Joey Bag of Donuts had a home study that was already created in FSFN, it would show up over here. And FSFN would actually allow us to copy over that information if we wanted to just update that home study. Maybe a year has passed and we needed to do a little update, or maybe Mr. Bag of Donuts moved residence, so we need to make that update. So we can definitely do that. But as you can see here, there's nothing there, which means that this particular caregiver has never had a home study done in FSFN. So we have to go over here to create. And I clicked on create and give FSFN a moment to think. And so now here is the screen for the home study. So it should be pretty familiar to you because it has all of the information that is in our Word document. It's just directly in FSFN, which is really awesome. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify our purpose for the home study. So if I drop down this area, you're going to see that there's different options. So depending on why you're doing this home study, you're going to select the purpose of it. So if you're in the adoptions department, for instance, you are most likely going to be doing adoption home study. So you would select that. However, if you're a case manager or child advocate, you might be just doing a relative or a non-relative placement. So you're just going to pick out whatever it is that is pertaining to your home study. So I'm going to pretend that my caregiver is going to be a non-relative placement. So I'm going to click on non-relative placement. And so then now, the next thing that I want to do after selecting the purpose of the home study is come down to this area where it has case ID, and there's a search hyperlink. And what I want to do is I want to click on search because I want to associate a case that contains the children for the home study to this provider, to this actual home study. Now on this screen, you can definitely enter the last name and the first name of the case that contains the children or the child that you want to do the home study for. But for me, the fastest way to get a direct hit in FSFN is by using the case ID number. So I'm going to enter the case ID number for the case that contains the child, actually the children that I'm doing this home study for. And I'm just going to double check. Yep, that's the case. I'm going to click on the radio button and I'm going to hit on continue. And so what FSFN is going to do, it's going to now bring over the children that are associated with that case and put them right into this home study. So it allows me the opportunity to select the child, or in this case, the children that I want to do the home study for. And so if Mr. Bag of Donuts had any kind of relationship to the children on this case, I would go over here and I would drop down and I would say how these children are related to them. But for my case in this example, I made Mr. Bag of Donuts a non-relative, so I'm just going to leave it blank because he's a non-relative. He doesn't have any relationship other than he wants to be a potential placement for the kids. And so what I want to do next is I want to go down to where it has Joey Bag of Donuts' name, and I want to select yes. I want to say that yes, I have Mr. Bag of Donuts' Social Security. I'm in the process of doing all the background, so I'm going to say yes. And then I'm going to see that there's a little area, it's not blue, but we live in a very transient area. So if Mr. Bag of Donuts has resided in other states, we're going to indicate what states that he has resided in, and we're going to give the dates. Now, you'll also notice that underneath home evaluation, I created this home study today, so it has today's date. But if I created it or actually started the process of calling the potential caregiver and getting their demographic information and starting the backgrounds, if I did that a week ago or a couple weeks ago or a couple of days ago, I can definitely say that change that into a different date. And then when I'm ready, when I'm closer to completing my home study, I'm going to enter the date that I completed the home study. And if I scroll down, I just want you to see that it has where if we created other non-household members, we didn't for this particular example, but if we did, they would show up there. It also gives us an opportunity to insert them if we previously forgot. I'm going to scroll back up. I just want you to take note that Mr. Bag of Donuts is a single gentleman, but if he had someone else residing in his home that's an adult that's going to be in a caregiver position and we entered it previously, that person's information would automatically pre-populate over here. And so now that we're done with the demographics tab, we're going to move on over to the prior intakes and investigation slash referrals tab. So I clicked on it and oh, we see a wonderful thing. Mr. Bag of Donuts does not have any intakes or any investigations or any special condition referrals that have been created on him. And that's an amazing thing for a potential placement for us. But in case if you do have a person with a little bit of history in FSFN, what you'll need to do is for each of the intakes or for each of the investigations that you'll have to click directly on the hyperlink and read upon what exactly has happened in the investigation or the intake. Sometimes those are going to be automatic disqualifiers for even continuing on with the home study process, or it could just be that that person was created as a support system for a previous intake or investigation. So never assume just because you see something on this screen that it's automatically bad, but definitely investigate further by clicking on any hyperlinks that show up here. So after reviewing the prior intakes and investigations slash referrals tab, I'm going to move over to my background check information tab. I'm going to select it. So this tab is going to be the area that you do a couple things. The first thing is it's going to be the area that you request FSFN backgrounds or the FCIC results for the individuals for the home study. It's also going to be the area where you document all of the results from the various backgrounds that you've been receiving on that individual or on all the individuals. So the first thing we're going to do is select my request type. It could either be a planned placement or an emergency placement. In this case, I'm going to say that it's planned, just the majority of our home studies in case management. We know where we want to place the child or where we would like to place the child. And then underneath background check, I'm going to select the little box right next to Joey Bacatonis' name. And the reason for that is because I want to get, or I want to request, excuse me, the backgrounds in FSFN for Mr. Bag of Donuts. I'm going to move on over for my area where it says fingerprint results. And so I should be sending everyone that is placed or that is residing in the household that's 18 years of age or older, I should be sending them to go get their live scan fingerprints done. And so there's two things that I can say. I can say that, yes, I've received those fingerprints results and I can give you the date that I received that information. Or I can say, you know what? No, I don't have the fingerprint results just yet. And then that's going to have this area become available for me to tell FSFN, why is it that I do not have the fingerprint results? And so I can say a variety of things. I can say, you know what? I started getting backgrounds and you know what we got, it was already disqualifying. So we don't really need to do fingerprints. They don't really need to go in to do their live screen. Or we can say, you know what? I'm creating this home study. It's a dynamic document. I sent them for fingerprints, but we're still pending the results. And then obviously when I do get the results, I will go back in and I will say, yes, I received them and give the date that I received those and that information. So I'm going to say that I actually received the results for Mr. Bag of Donuts today. And so I'm going to select today's date. And what I want to check again is that I have selected Mr. Bag of Donuts, and I'm going to hit on request background check. It's going to tell me to save my page. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to save my page. And so I'm going to give FSFN a little moment to think about it. And so it has thought about it and it has eliminated some of my information. So I'm just going to go back in and I'm going to say I want to request it. And so this little message is going to pop up. And it's a pop-up to remind us that we should be doing backgrounds on individuals that truly we are trying to place a child or trying to place children with. It shouldn't be for the purposes of visitation. It shouldn't be for the purposes of just to kind of figure out what's going on with an individual background-wise. In this case, we really, really want to do a home study for Mr. Bag of Donuts as a potential placement for these kids. So we want to say yes. And so when FSFN has emailed you and notified you the Mr. Bag of Donuts results for the request for the background has been done, it will show up. If I close this box out, it will show up right here where it says actions. It'll show up as a hyperlink here. I just want to remind everyone, we all know that when we get that email from the command center telling us that our FSFN backgrounds are available, that please immediately try to stop what you're doing if it's convenient for you and go into FSFN and view the backgrounds and also print them out, because it is time sensitive. After 72 hours it does purge from the system, which is something that needs to be done for confidentiality reasons. But definitely make sure that you do that once you get that notification for that email. If you keep on scrolling down, you're going to see that it has these two sections. Number one, where it says additional background checks not listed above, this is where you're going to put the information that you receive from the DMV check, from the clerk and comptroller's record check, from all the different things that you've been doing to make sure that this individual is a safe individual to place the children with. And then under clearance issues, this is where you're going to very nicely describe if there's any disqualifiers or if there's any concerns that you have for the safety of the children because of the background information. This is where you're going to put that information there. And you want to be specific so that it can be relayed, that information, to everyone that reads the home study. So once I'm done with the background check information tab, I'm going to move over to the next tab, which is the financial security resources and child care arrangement tab. So in this area is where I'm going to do the finance breakdown. And so I've had a nice conversation with the caregiver, not only about their demographic information, but I've also asked them a lot of information regarding their employment. So when I click on this expander or the triangle, I'm able to enter all the information about their employment. And so I'm going to enter the name of the employer, the address of the employment, how long they've been working there. Now this information can definitely be gained by speaking with the caregiver verbally and entering that information, but you definitely want to validate it with either pay stubs or some other form of financial documentation. So now I have the hours. I'm going to put the hours that the caregiver works. I'm also going to enter the net monthly salary. FSFN also gives you an opportunity to enter additional income or benefits that the caregiver may be already receiving. If they aren't receiving anything else, then you just put the information that you have. Now, it's a wonderful thing that FSFN already will calculate up the support or the income that the caregiver has, and they'll bring it over to this side, which is their combined monthly income. So if they had additional benefits, we'll say that they have, some retirement benefits also coming in for $500, just so that you can see it calculates it out for you. So we're going to erase that and I'm going to put it 0. They only have their salary. So now the very, very important area is not only the income coming in, but also their monthly expenses. You want to make sure that prior to you actually going out and doing the physical inspection to the home, you give the caregiver a heads up that not only are you going to be asking for their expenses, but you really want to make sure that they have a nice sense of how much money they are paying in bills every month. It's not only important for us to know that our caregivers care and love our children that are going to be placed in their home, and that ultimately it is a safe placement for those kids to be residing in. But we want to also make sure that they financially can be able to care for the children. So we want to enter how much they're paying for their rent or for their mortgage, their utility, if they have a car payment, if they have insurance, if they have their own children's child care payments that they're doing. We want to enter all that information. On the bottom, right here in this little area where it says other bills, every single person, including our potential caregivers, have other bills. And we want to make sure that we insert those bills that they have. So whether it be from financial aid loans, or maybe perhaps it's department store credit cards, we want to ask our caregivers to be very, very truthful because we want to really gauge if they're financially able to care for our children. And so if I scroll down, after doing all that, FSFN is going to calculate out for us their expenses and their income. So you'll be able to see without whipping out your trusty calculator if they are able to care for another child in the home or for children in the home. So now we're going to answer questions regarding the family situation. I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you can see the whole area. And so the first question is asking you, does the caregiver have sufficient funds? Basically, it means their income and their expenses. Does it match up, or do they have a little bit of surplus income at the end of the month? We're going to say that Mr. Bag of Donuts, yes, he has sufficient funds coming in. The next question is regarding childcare or after school care. We want to allow the opportunity for the caregiver to explain to us what they are going to do regarding childcare if needed or any after school care programs. We're also going to want to know how they intend to pay for such services. So what their response is, we're going to type that information in there. The next thing is we're going to allow the opportunity for the caregiver to tell us what they think are going to be additional expenses that they see when the child is actually placed in their home. So that might be an increase in electricity, an increase in groceries. Maybe they have to get a different type of car insurance for transporting the child. So whatever it is that the caregiver anticipates as an increase in their expenses when the child is placed in their home. The next question is where we will basically determine whether or not the caregiver can financially care for the child without causing additional financial hardship on the household. So we really want to be truthful. I know that we are looking into someone that is caring for the child, that's going to love the child, that the placement is safe, but we also want to make sure that the placement can actually financially care for the child, because we know that hardship when it comes to finances can really add on to stress, which can trickle down into other facets of life. So we want to be truthful with that answer. We're going to say that Mr. Bag of Donuts that yes, he can financially care for the child or the children in this case without any hardship. We're also going to answer the question regarding the caregiver and their desire to be eligible for any assistance program. And if they are requesting services or any programs, then we're going to type that information in right here. Then the last question is going to ask if this family is willing to adopt the child without a subsidy. So if they don't get any monetary gain or any financial resources, are they still willing to adopt this child? And you will have to document it as accurately as the caregiver is telling you. Joey Bag of Donuts, not only does he want the children placed in his home, we're going to say that yes, you know what, that he'll have the children if they're available for adoption even without a subsidy. So after completing the financial security resources and childcare arrangement tab, we're going to move over to a very important area, which is the narrative family assessment. This is the area that you want to be very, very detailed of all the information that the caregiver has responded to you in your very, very in-depth conversation regarding their willingness to be a potential caregiver to the child, but also on who they are as an individual and what is their intention of being a caregiver for the child. So make sure that you go through each of these areas and answer the questions very detailed. So the first one's asking about the past history of child abuse, neglect, substance misuse, or domestic violence as it pertains to the potential caregiver. So you really want to make sure that you get a sense of any past history that they might have and how they were able to either kind of excel over it or how it is that it is affecting them currently, if it is. The next question is going to ask you to ask the caregiver, well, how are they with their medical condition or with their health, and also goes into their mental health condition and any medication that they might be currently prescribed. So you really want to get into detail about their health and their mental health well-being. The third question is asking you to ask the caregiver, how are they willing to participate in the child's court hearings and their staffings and any meetings, perhaps school meetings that the child might have? How involved are they going to be basically with this particular child or the children? I'm going to scroll down so you can see question number 4, and definitely you can read that, but it's going to ask you, what is the intention of the caregiver? How are they going to encourage this child, their likes, their dislikes? How are they going to promote extracurricular activities for this child? How involved are they going to be in this child's school, all their activities, transportation to and from their activities? And not only that, but do they have an awareness of all of the trauma that the child may have been placed under? Then question number 5 is going to give you an opportunity to tell the caregiver or ask the caregiver, how are they going to respect the child's culture, their religion, their ethnicity, and any other special or psychological needs that they might have. This might even include sexual orientation. So we want to make sure that we have all that information as the caregiver's response documented in this area. For question number 6, it's actually going to allow an opportunity for the caregiver to respond to how permanently committed are they to this particular child or children. Are they willing to maintain a relationship even if the child gets reunified or gets placed in another placement? So we'll have a nice little area for their response in this section. I'm going to keep scrolling down. For number 7, it's going to get very, very real. Basically, it's going to ask the caregivers, what are they going to do or how are they going to address challenges? Our children have been through a lot of trauma, and so they're going to display a lot of behaviors that are very, very common in kids in child welfare. And these can include things that are a little off-putting to some potential caregivers. And that's fire setting, sexual reactive behaviors, mental health issues or concerns. They might be aggressive, they might use language that might be considered very vulgar. So we want to put that information on the caregiver as a potential of not if it happens, but hey, when it does happen, how are you going to address these challenges? And then we're going to move on to question number 8. And that is going to ask, how is the caregiver willing to maintain a transition plan? Basically, when the child leaves the home or we're transitioning the child to be reunified or leaving their home to another placement, how committed are they into maintaining that relationship? For question number 9, it's going to ask, how committed are they to assist with the biological caregivers and the family for the child to make sure that there's contact between them and the children, even if the children do not remain in their home, so that they can have that permanent connection. Then we're going to move down to question number 10 that's going to ask, how are they willing to facilitate in visitation, whether that's visitation with the biological parents or sibling visitation for siblings that aren't placed with the kids. So how willing are they to facilitate those visitations? Then we're going to move down to question number 11, and this is, How willing are they to maintain a record for this child? Not only the child resource record, but also to provide copies to all the individuals or all the participants for the case. And this could be the guardian ad litem program, the judiciary, case management when they arrive to the home. And then we move on to question number 12. And that is going to ask the caregiver, how are they going to advocate for the child, not only in case management, but at school, at their child care facility if they're not in school, at their appointments to their doctors or their mental health providers, advocating for them in court hearings or in staffings. Then we're going to move on to question number 13, which is, how willing are the caregivers to transport the children and attend all of these various appointments that the child has? So a caregiver might be willing to advocate for the child, but they might not be able to, because of their profession or because of whatever other reason, willing to attend these various appointments. But whatever it is, we want to document that information right here. Question number 14 is asking, how willing and committed are they to the child's academic success? So are they willing to maybe be a tutor? If they can't tutor, are they willing to provide a tutor to the child? Are they going to IEP meetings if the child has an individual education plan? How willing and how able are they to commit to the educational success of the child? We're going to type in that response right here. And so we're going to scroll down to the motivation section. And so in this box, what we want to do is we want to document the true motivation of the caregiver. We want to know why they are desiring this child or these children being placed into their home. And the answer really has to be more than just, well, I'm related to the child, or the biological parent asked me to be a placement, or the court recommended that I be a placement for this child. We really want to get a sense of why it is that this caregiver is wanting to add this particular child or children to their family dynamic. Then in the education and employment section, we want to just document the educational history of the caregiver and their employment information. In the family life section, this section is going to get into complete detail of every single person that's a part of this household, how they are related to one another, how they interact with one another, what is the support system in this household. We might have friends or non-relatives that participate in activities, or they come around the household. We want to make sure that we describe what activities that household does together. Maybe every Tuesday they have game night. Maybe every Sunday they go to church. And every Thursday they sit together and they have dinner as a family. And these are their values and this is their culture. We also want to talk about any anticipated adjustment challenges or issues that we might come across with placing additional children into the home. And we want to also talk about any other history of placements of children in their home. And we want to put that information in there in the family life. The last section is the physical environment. And this is where the case manager or the child advocate is going to be very descriptive of the home. So is it a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that overlooks the lake? Or is it a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment that's in a gated community? We want to also have information about the children and their sleeping arrangements that are going to be placed in the home, and what other accommodations are going to be made for the child or the children in the physical environment of the home. So after completing thoroughly the Narrative Family Assessment tab, we move on over to the Attachments to the Unified Home Study tab. And now this is where you will indicate whether or not you have attached the required documents to your home study. So you'll just kind of scroll on down and either say attached or not attached and provide a reason for all the various documents that you are required to attach to your home study. And so next I'm going to show you how you would upload images onto the Unified Home Study. And so you'll see here underneath actions where it says upload images, I'm just going to click directly on the hyperlink and it's going to take me to a new screen. Here I'll be able to indicate the date that a document was scanned, and then I'll also be able to select the image type. So whether it's a pay stub or a financial verification, or perhaps even just photos of the physical inspection of the home, you'll be able to select and then ultimately browse to your computer where you have saved that image, and then save that uploaded image into the filing cabinet for the Unified Home Study. Now that you see how easy it is to do a unified home study in FSFN, go on out there and do one yourself.